lecture ketiga tak habis. Kalau kita dapat habiskan, ini kita boleh start dengan minggu keempat. Okay, so ada lebih kurang 2 kelas yang kita perlu ganti. So boleh tak petang ni pukul 2.30 ataupun pukul 3 kita buat kelas?
Boleh.
So pukul berapa yang awak selesa ya? Pukul 2.30 ke pukul 3? Pukul berapa?
2.30.
2.30 PM. Okay, so 2.30 ya. So kita akan buat kelas. Nanti saya akan bagi link lah. And then dia ada announcements is minggu depan kita akan sambung assignments. Tengoklah kalau kita, sebab untuk lab kedua kita akan buat simple lab saja. Kita akan observe the deficiency symptoms. Biasanya kita akan buat dekat nursery, JNC. And then assignments pun kita akan buat JNC. So kalau boleh kita buat pada waktu yang sama. Sebab lab biasanya kalau berdasarkan pengalaman saya untuk sem-sem lepas kita boleh siap sekejap saja sebab we just observe deficiency symptoms dekat JNC, pokok-pokok yang ada dekat JNC. So it will take short time sajalah. Okay. Oleh sebab puasa, okay, alhamdulillah lah sebelum ni cuaca kalau tengah hari tu sangat panas tapi sekarang musim hujan kan. Walau bagaimanapun saya ada cadangan. Sebab kita pagi dengan Isnin waktu kuliah dengan lab adalah hari yang sama. Tapi cuma saya nak tukar. Lab kita buat waktu pagi, kelas kita buat waktu petang. Boleh ke? Kalau lab melibatkan aktiviti dekat JNC lah. Okay. So kita start pukul 10. Sebab pukul 9 tak boleh kan, ada few classmate awak yang ada kelas pukul 9 kan. So kita start pukul 10. Okay. So minggu depan nanti sebelum ada lab nanti saya akan remind semula pada awak semua, takut ada yang terlupa kan. So minggu depan pukul 10 pagi kita akan ada lab di JNC. Petang kita akan buat kelas pula. Okay. Sebab puasa kalau petang saya rasa takut keadaan cuaca sangat panas nanti problem nanti ya. Okay. So itu sahaja. So let us continue with our topic. So boleh kita sambung?
Boleh.
Okay. Before we start our kuliah or lecture, let us recite umul kitab Al-Fatihah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma ftah alaina hikmataka wa anshur alaina min azaini rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. So minggu lepas saya tak berapa ingat kita berhenti dekat slide yang mana. Tapi saya nak ulang semula few slide lah. What I remember last week we stopped at the functions of secondary macronutrients in plant physiology. Calcium's involved in several processes in plant. Okay. Apart of potassiums, calcium's also involved in controlling stomata openings. Okay, but the difference between calciums and potassiums will control the closing and opening stomata in normal conditions. Okay. The main stimulus that control stomata during normal conditions is the intensity of radiations of sunlight. So there are photoreceptor in gut cells that determines the intensity of sunlight. So if the sunlight intensity is very high, it will trigger potassium's pump in potassium into gut cells. So the concentrations of potassiums will decrease the osmotic pressure of water. Thus, the water molecule will flow into gut cells, flow into kalau waktu siang when the photoreceptor strike by the sunlight, potassium will pump out, okay, potassium from gut cells to outer cells, so that the water potentials of water will uh, higher. Okay, sebab the solute dah berkurangan. Jadi air akan keluar daripada gut cells kepada sel-sel yang bersebelahan. So gut cells akan tertutup. So bila waktu malam, the potassium pumps will pump in potassium into gut cells. So the water potentials will become lower, and then the water molecules will flow into gut cells, and gut cells become turgid and the stomata will open. But the difference with calciums will control the opening and closing stomata when plant experience stress conditions, abiotic stress, when plant experience water deficits. Okay. Magnesiums, the main functions of magnesiums in plant is for molecular structure of chlorophylls. Okay, so the central atoms of chlorophylls contains magnesiums atoms. Apart from that, magnesiums also crucial for the stability of ribosomes. Okay, we know that ribosomes comprise of two subunits, largest subunit and small subunits. So this stability of large subunit and small subunit is crucial for protein synthesis to occur. Okay, and then sulfur mainly required by plant for protein productions. Sulfur mainly in plant exists in cysteines and methionines. Apart from that, sulfur is also required by plant for synthesis of vitamins B. Okay, there are two different vitamin B that contain sulfur, thiamines and biotins. Okay, and then now let us continue with physical chemical properties of this element in soil. How these different elements behave in soils. Okay, so calciums are readily available for plant uptake in the form of calcium ions. Okay, Ca2 plus. It is macronutrients in plant that actively exclude from plant cytoplasms. Why? Because calciums are uptakes by plant by passive uptakes. So it can move in and move out from root tissues, depend on the concentrations of the calciums. If the concentrations of calciums is higher in soil solutions, the calcium ion will flow in or move in into root tissues. If the calcium ion concentrations is higher in root tissues, it will flow up to rhizosphere. So it is divalent ions. What is meant by divalent ion? It can forms chemical bonds with two different atoms, divalence. Kalau macam ferric, trivalence. Carbon, saya tak ingat lah. Dia 4. Dia boleh bind with 4 different atoms. So, because calcium is divalent atoms, it can establish or it can form intramolecular complex, and also it can link two different molecules in intermolecular complex. So kalau macam masih ingat functions of calcium, apart from that, it will bind or serve as a bridge to link between phospholipid bilayer and proteins that embed in plasma membrane. So it will contribute to stability of plasma membranes. So this is how calciums behave, or how calciums can be transformed from one chemical forms into another chemical forms. So basically, calciums in soil derive from fertilizer. Okay, there are different type of fertilizer that can be source of calcium. Okay, for example, we have calcium nitrate, we have calcium sulfate, and also phosphorus fertilizer. Okay, phosphate, calcium phosphate. Okay, uh, lime also can be source of calciums. Okay, limings. Kalau kita nak control pH dekat tanah tu, kita biasanya buat aktiviti pengkaburan ataupun limings. Okay, so in limes it contains calcium ions. Okay, apart from that, calcium in soil can be derived from weathering process. Okay, apa maksud weathering process? Formations of soil. Okay, ataupun breakdown of rock into smaller particles. The breakdown of rock will also not only will release more particles into soil, but it will also release ions that initially tightly bind to the minerals into soil solutions. Okay, um, calcium in soil will um, dipengaruhi oleh pH. Okay, begitu juga same goes to other mineral. It will be influenced largely by the soil the pH of soil. In high pH, calcium will bind with phosphate, okay, to form a calcium ion. In acidic, calcium will tend to leach to water sources. Okay. Apart from that, calcium also can bind with minerals in soils. Okay, we call this process is precipitations. Okay, kalau awak belajar soil science, kita ada dua proses weatherings. Okay, weatherings, the breakdown of rock into small particles. Proses yang berlawanan dengan weathering process adalah precipitations. Okay, weathering ataupun kita panggil dissolutions process. Kalau precipitations, dia adalah binding of ions with minerals. So apart from weatherings and fertilizations, calcium also in soil also can derive from decompositions of organic particles. Okay, so plant or animal residue that undergo decompositions will release a lot of elements, include calcium into soil solutions. So these calciums that dissolve in soil solutions can be uptaken by animals, by plants, and also bacteria. Okay, so this process we call assimilations. Calciums move toward roots by diffusions and mass flow. There are several ways how element in soil can reach root surface, either by root interceptions, mass flow, or diffusions. What is root interceptions? As root grow, it will explore a larger volume of soil. Okay, so by chance it will intercept, or it will reach area where the elements are concentrated into. Okay, apart from that, element in soil solutions can move to soil surface by diffusions. Okay, what is mean by diffusions? What is definitions of diffusions? Diffusions is the movement of solute from higher concentration gradients to lower concentrations gradients. So basically, root rhizosphere or area around the roots will contains lower concentrations of elements, okay, usually. Why? Because this is the area where the element is separated by plasma membranes. Okay, kita ada satu part elements that dissolve in soil solutions, and another part elements in plant tissues, and these elements are separated by plasma membranes. Okay, so usually rhizosphere area the concentrations of element is lower because the elements in rhizosphere area is actively absorbed or uptake by the plants. So it will create the concentrations gradients. So that elements, for example, calciums or potassiums, that initially far from root tissues will travel or move into root tissues by diffusion process. Okay. Apart from that, element also can travel from soil solutions into area near the roots by mass flow. Okay, so mass flow will create different concentrations of concentration gradients between soil solutions and root surface. Why? Because when the molekul air tu dekat daun atau dekat stomata, dia mengalami transpirations, okay, perubahan daripada soil solutions into gas molecules. This process will create pressure. Okay, macam mana pressure boleh berlaku? Biasanya bila water molecule being transformed into gas, the pressure will lower dekat bahagian stomata tu. Okay. And then pressure juga dia dekat bahagian akar tu, soil solutions dia akan tinggi pada keadaan biasa lah. Tapi bila dekat stoma tu dah rendah, apa yang berlaku? Water molecule will be pushed from higher pressure to lower pressure. Okay, daripada kawasan akar tu, dia punya pressure tinggi sebab ada tekanan atmosfera. Dia akan tarik water molecules daripada bahagian soil solutions into root tissues. Okay, so the movement of water by mass flow also will bring element that dissolve in soil solutions into ataupun near to root tissues. Okay, so calcium's uptake by plant is in a passive, does not require energy or any specific proteins. So that sebab itulah kenapa calcium adalah salah satu elements yang that actively absorbs and also exclude by plants. It will exclude when the concentrations of calciums in plant tissues higher compared to water solutions. Calcium's mobility in plant will take place mainly by xylem. Okay, of course. Okay, because xylems will dia akan ambil air daripada bawah bahagian akar kepada bahagian atas. Okay, so when the water flow through the xylem, it will also bring any dissolved element in water. Okay, so therefore calcium's uptake directly related to plant transpiration rates. Okay, kenapa calcium's uptake directly related to transpiration rate? Because calcium is absorbed by plant by passive uptakes. Okay, ini sama ya. So this is the calcium distributions in plant. So juvenile leaf usually contains lower amount of calcium. As the plant organ become matured, it will contains high concentrations of calcium. Why? Because the calcium will be deposited in middle lamina mainly. Okay, sebab itulah calcium diperlukan banyak dekat bahagian-bahagian mature leaf itu tadi. So calcium is not mobile. Okay, if you still remember, elements can be grouped based on their mobility in plant tissues. What is meant by element mobility? Certain element can be degrades. Okay, or catabolic process will transforms this element into ion, and it will be transported or translocated into where this element is required more. Okay, for example, kalau macam nitrogen, dia boleh ditranslocate from all the leaf to new leaf. Nitrogens in chlorophylls will be degenerated. Okay, sebab itu kita nampak bila daun tu dah tua dia jadi warna kuning. Sebab apa? Chlorophylls concentrations daun yang dah tua tu dia berkurangan. Okay, chlorophylls tu degenerated, and then the elements magnesiums and nitrogens will be transported into new leaf. However, for calciums, it cannot be transported, degenerated into transported into new leaf. Okay, so biasanya kalau calcium tak boleh ditranslocate or move from all the leaf or all the organs to new organs, the disease symptoms will be observed on all the organs. Okay. Magnesiums in soils, in soil solutions exist in the form of magnesium ions. Uptake of magnesiums at a root soil boundary is believed to be mediated by specific membranes transporter, okay, so-called MGT family. There are few elements that their uptake process is not completely elucidated. Okay, macam nitrogens, ions, kita tahu dengan jelas bagaimana proses ini diambil. Tapi for potassiums, magnesium atau several elements, dia punya proses it's not clear enough. Okay, how the process occur. Samalah juga macam magnesium. So magnesium is believed the uptake or transportations through plasma membranes is mediated by few transport protein. So magnesium uptake kita boleh katakan involve ataupun mediated through active transport. Okay. So magnesium in soil largely can be grouped into three different conditions. Okay, one, magnesium in soil solutions, magnesium in exchangeable conditions, and also magnesium in non-exchangeable conditions. Okay, tapi sebenarnya kalau kita teliti, semua elemen boleh dikelaskan mengikut kelas yang ini. Okay, in soil solutions, in exchangeable conditions, and also in non-exchangeable conditions. Okay, what is magnesium in soil solutions? Magnesium in soil solution is in equilibriums with the exchangeable magnesiums that is readily available for plants. Okay, if you remember, there are primary elements that also can be grouped like magnesiums. It in soil solutions, concentrations is equilibriums. Okay, kalau ingat elements apa? Ingat tak Nurin? Nurin, mana ada? Oh, ada Nurin ke? Kelas awak ada Nurin kan? Tak ada nama, saya tak ingat lah. Saya rasa ada nama Nurin. Ada Nurin kan?
Ada.
Nurin. Kalau awak ingat elemen apa yang dia dalam soil solutions in equilibriums? Awak ingat tak? Tak ingat. Kalau awak ingat potassium, okay? So potassium in soil solutions is in equilibrium conditions. Same goes to magnesium. What is meant by equilibriums? For example, we have a definite concentrations of magnesium in soil solutions. Okay, for example, the concentrations in certain soil solutions is 1 milligrams per liter, for example. Okay, so when this magnesium in soil solutions being uptake by plants, okay, The magnesiums that initially in exchangeable conditions will dissolve in soil solutions. Okay. What is exchangeable magnesiums? Exchangeable magnesiums is magnesiums that loosely bind with soil particles, okay, with silicates or with organic matter. Okay. So non-exchangeable magnesiums is magnesiums that tightly bind with minerals. Okay. So these magnesiums can be transformed or changed into exchangeables or available magnesiums by weathering process. Okay. The exchangeable magnesiums can also be turned into non-exchangeable magnesiums. This happens when the magnesiums tightly bind with mineral in soils. Okay. So saya rasa awak faham lah tu, awak dah ambil soil science kan. Sulfur in soil, how sulfur distribute in soil? Sulfur is needed fairly in large quantity by most crop, okay? Because we know sulfur is macronutrients. Apart from that, sulfur is required by plants for synthesis of amino acids. Sulfur present in several organic compounds that give characteristics to all, although to garlics, mustard, and ions. Certain plant, the concentrations of sulfur in its tissues is high compared to other plants. Okay, for example, durians. Okay, durian contains a lot of sulfur. So basically macam mana kita nak tahu satu tumbuhan ni it contain high sulfur ataupun tak? Biasanya dia akan menghasilkan bau yang kuat macam bawang putih ataupun durian. Dia menghasilkan bau yang kuat. Okay, so this kind of plant usually contain high concentrations of sulfur. Okay, so unlike other secondary nutrients like calcium and magnesium, sulfur is absorbed primarily as an anion. It also enter plant leaf through dioxide gas. Okay, tapi mainly sulfur being absorbed or uptake by plant by sulfates. Okay, SO4 ni. Sulfate is soluble and easily lost in soil by leaching. Okay, and ions. Okay, negative ions can be easily leached if the pH is lower. Okay, sebab apa? When bila biasanya anion. Okay, anion dia easily to be leached kalau soil pH tinggi. Okay, sebab apa? Bila soil pH tinggi, apa maksud dia? OH group, concentrations of OH groups is very high. Okay, so these OH groups dia akan replace the binding of anion dekat soil particles. Okay, so that soil particles become available. Okay, itu secara positifnya, tapi secara negatifnya it can be easily leached into water sources. There are different sources of sulfur in soils. Okay, one of them is from soil minerals and atmospheric depositions and also organic matter. Soil minerals, macam mana soil mineral boleh menjadi sumber sulfur? So biasanya inorganic form of sulfur such as sulfate can be important source of sulfur in soil where they can contains in parent materials. Okay, so this sulfur that contained in parent material or in rock can be turned into available sulfur through weathering process. Okay, the sulfur also can be available through atmospheric depositions. Okay, so burning of fossils will contain sulfur dioxide. So this sulfur dioxide dia boleh macam mana? Dia boleh deposit through rainings. Okay, so kalau satu kawasan tu contain high sulfur dioxide, waktu hujan dia akan menghasilkan hujan asid. Okey. Sebab apa? Sulfur dioxide ini dia akan dissolve in water molecule in atmosphere and become sulfuric acid. So this sulfuric acids will be deposited into soil through raining. Okay. And then